I'm going to begin today's reading by summarizing where we're at so far. And right now we're in Book 1, the Samadhi Pada portion on contemplation in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And I've gone through this whole book actually only once before, the book from start to finish, and that was when I was in my yoga teacher training. And I realized as I was reading it that many of these readings were based on things I had realized previous years, things where I thought, oh wow, a new understanding in life, a new spiritual understanding. And yet every time I go through them more meticulously, I gain insight into my current life circumstances. And it's very coincidental, the ones that come up for me. The cat always insists on hearing some sound. Oh, that one? She's like really staring at that one. You like that one? Good, yes. All right, so Book 1, Samadhi Pada, portion on contemplation. This begins our study of Raja Yoga, or Ashtanga, 8-limbed yoga, as it is sometimes called. The Yoga Sutras, as expounded by the sage Patanjali Maharishi, comprise the first and foremost scripture of yoga. It was Patanjali, not Maharishi, who carefully coordinated yogic thought and explained it to his students. That's not, a fact. The fact is that no one really knows for sure. Maybe they do. Maybe someone does know for sure. But since I did not grow up in that culture, I am not an expert on this. All I am an expert on is my own life and how I have applied these principles to my own life and my growth and my understanding. The first sutra, just to summarize. 1, now the exposition of yoga is being made. 2, the restraint of the modifications of the mind stuff is yoga. 3, then the seer self abides in his own nature. 4, at other times the self appears to assume the forms of the mental modifications. That one's pretty important. When you hear that thing where we're not our mind or our thoughts. So this is when we kind of merge with our thinking that we are our thought and our mind and our emotions. 5, there are 5 kinds of mental modifications, which are either painful or painless. And we started delving into these mental modifications that are painful or painless. So there's 5 types: right knowledge, misconception, verbal delusion, sleep, and memory. The sources of right knowledge are direct perception, inference, and scriptural testimony. In other words, you can study scriptures to gain some insight. Misconception occurs when knowledge of something is not based upon its true form. And that's where I ended up yesterday. So I'm on 1.9, an image that arises on hearing mere words without any reality, as its basis is verbal delusion. An image that arises on hearing words without any reality, at its basis is verbal delusion. You hear something, but there is nothing like that. So someone paints a picture for you with their words and it's not true, and you can still see that picture. So there's, people who tell stories and they're lying, or people who tell stories and they're not lying, and there's people who tell stories and they're entertaining, great authors. So but in Vikalpa, verbal delusion, there's nothing there, yet you still create some opinion about it. So the goal of yoga is actually to still the mind, and the Yoga Sutras I'm reading through are just kind of little glimpses at the mind and how the mind works. And when we open up and unveil that, we realize that the mind has a lot of tricks to distract us from our inner peace, and we have the power and tools as human beings to find our way back to that quietness within. And I invite you to join me in my practice, and I always like to do a short asana practice in order to get my body moving and free for the day. This also helps to quiet my mind when my body feels better. So I like to do 3 sun salutations. At least. as my old friend I haven't seen for a long time, Govinda Kai, said 3 sun salutations a day. And you can tack on whatever story you want there after that. For me, it's 3 sun salutations a day. Keeps the aches and pains away. Mental and physical. So I'm thinking about the verbal delusions, the things that you picture in your mind and the stories you tell to yourself, or the things that you imagine. I have found that oftentimes if I am like spiraling off emotionally into one of those like inner visions, delusions, because things happen in life and we can be traumatized emotionally, physically, and these things happen to everyone throughout their life at least once, and it could be small traumas or big traumas or multiple traumas, and our practices are very important if we want to sustain ourselves and live free of those delusions. Because right now, in this moment, this is my experience and my story. And I love it. This is a small part of my morning practice, and I thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Namaste.